ready to make a snail? Make sure you have all of your supplies ready. We've got everything traced out. I used graphite paper to trace this, but you can also just use your pencil and your window if that's helpful. I'm grabbing now my number 6 brush. Make sure you want to have a round brush. Number 6 is a great size. I use this one the most out of any other size. It's a great size. Right now I'm coming in with the darker blue in your palette. It's called Intense Blue or Phthalo Blue, I believe is the other name for it. And I'm just coming in, it's very, very lightly here. Just going over everything. It's mostly water, as you can see, that I'm using here with just a little bit of pigment. And I'm just going over all of the body of the snail. And it might seem a little weird to be putting blue all over, but I promise that it will make sense in a minute. It's a great undertone color to make a nice brownish gray, which is what we're going to do for this snail. And as you can see, I've got the little picture above to use as a reference, and that comes with the kit, the Nature's Art kit. So you make sure that you download that if that's helpful for you. And that is my reference, but the one that you will have in your kit is actually the one that I'm painting right now. So it will be even closer to the finished project here. It will be the exact finished project. Okay, so I'm almost done, just going over the whole body. This is what we call in the watercolor world, we're just blocking it in. Okay, blocking in our colors. And now I'm going to go and get, it's called Burnt Umber. It's the darker brown in your palette. And I'm just going over while it's still damp. I'm going over all of that blue. As you can see, it makes a nice brownish gray color. And remember to keep it light. It's mostly water with just a little bit of pigment. Just imagining that the sun is shining above the snail. So my shadows are going to be underneath where the sun would be shining. Okay, now we're going to work on the shell. And this color is the lighter brown color. It's called Burnt Sienna. And we're just going to block that in. Just go over the whole shell using lots of water. As you can see, I'm just taking, it started out a little bit darker, so I'm just kind of moving that paint around on there. Okay, so now the next step is going to be getting some of that, let me just finish this out here. Okay, getting some of that darker brown, which is the burnt umber. And now, while it's still damp, I'm just going to make some little stripes on my shell. You don't have to do stripes. You can do whatever you want. There are a whole bunch of different kinds of snails, and all of their shells look so different. So I'm choosing to do little lines on mine. And as you can see, because it's wet, they are, we're doing the wet on wet technique here. So it's going to expand a little bit and look really natural. And also, if you'll notice with my lines, I'm curving them so that they kind of follow where the shell, how the shell would curve. So as you're doing your lines, if that's what you choose to do, just make sure that they're kind of following the curve of the shell. And remember, they do not have to look perfect because that's not how they look in real life. They're all different. That's the beautiful thing about nature. There's not two things that are exactly the same. Okay, now I'm just coming in with just a wet brush that doesn't have any paint on it, and I'm just moving the paint that I've already put down that's still wet. I'm just moving it around a little bit. Just again, kind of following the curves of the shell. Okay. Just kind of assessing everything, kind of seeing what I think needs to be darker and what I think needs to be lighter. And getting a little bit more of that burnt umber, and now I'm mixing that burnt umber with some of the intense blue, and I'm going to make a nice dark gray, almost a black. So that is a little secret. If you want to make black, you just mix the brown umber, the darker brown, with the darker blue, the intense blue. And now I'm just using the tip of my brush. And if that is a little scary to you, you can go ahead and use a smaller brush. I'm very comfortable using the tip of my brush now, but I didn't used to be. So if that's uncomfortable for you, just go ahead and use your smaller number 2 brush and just go around, and I'm just kind of defining where I want my shadows to be and my shapes to be. So I'm kind of just outlining where all of the lines are on my outline that I printed out, that I traced. I'm just defining all of the things on here. And of course I'm going to give my cute little snail some eyes. Oh, he's so happy now. Such a cute snail. Okay, so now I'm just coming in with my wet brush. I got all of the paint off of my brush, and it's just wet with water. And now I'm just kind of moving that paint around and just making it so those lines aren't so sharp. That's the nice thing about watercolor. When it dries, you can still move it around if you just get it wet again. You have a little bit of time to really work on what you're doing. And I'm just kind of playing with it a little bit, just making it look the way I want it to look. You can see I went back in with that dark gray and I'm just kind of bringing a little more shadow into certain areas. Okay, and then just again moving it around with a wet brush. And now it's time to work on my shell. So I'm just going to, again, imagine the sun is shining above my snail. So of course the shadows will be there underneath on my shell. So I'm just following the lines that were on my outline. And I'm going to just add some shadow there. The lines will be a little bit thicker on the underside and then thinner above. And there's really, don't worry too much about messing the shell up, because really it's not hard. It's really going to be hard for you to mess it up. So now I'm just adding, I want to add a little highlight to the top of the shell. So I'm just adding shadow with that dark gray on the sides there, as you can see. Okay, and then just moving things around. As you can see, I washed out my brush and now I'm just moving the paint around. I'm just barely touching it with the tip of my brush. Okay, and see how that created a little bit of a highlight there on the top of my shell? Now I'm choosing to outline it with a waterproof Sharpie, just because I personally like the look of outlining it. You do not have to do this. You can, if you're happy with it without the outline, then keep it. I just think it defines it a little bit more. And I just love that little detail of that outline around my painting. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Make sure it doesn't show here on the video, but just make sure if you're going to outline, make sure that your paint is completely dry, just because it's a lot easier to do it with your pen if it's dry. I know from experience that it doesn't work as well if you're trying to outline with wet paint. It kind of ruins your pen. And the nice thing about when you're outlining is you can add little details that you want to as you go. See here, I'm just adding little lines to make it, to just add a little bit more detail to my shell. And once you're done with outlining, you're finished. So now you can hang it up on the wall, share it with a friend. Even better, take a picture and share it with us. You can do that on Instagram, just using the hashtag Nature's Art Kit. And then if you want to show it to everybody on the Facebook group, we've got a private Facebook group called Nature's Art, and share it with us there. We'd love to see you there as part of our community on Facebook. And I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.